Hey, I'm Patrick Sweeney. I'm going to go through the quick initial impressions and installation of the CS3 chain cleaning system. So I'm down in Costa Rica for La Ruta, which is the toughest mountain bike race in the world, according to the organizers. And I would agree with that. The second time I've done it, particularly the first day, you spend probably 4 or 5 hours in the jungle, and mud so thick you're barely able to walk in it. You sink up to your legs and knees. So I'm trying this chain system. The science behind it makes a lot of sense, and there's been a lot of reports about getting 10, 15, 20 watts of extra power by keeping your chain cleaned and lubed as you ride. I just think, honestly, it's going to be a real test to see if the system will even stay intact in the first days in this jungle. So it'll be an interesting test. The second 2 days, I think it would be a great benefit, but this first day, I don't even know if the thing's going to survive. So that's going to be the initial test. So when you get the system, the first thing I noticed was it looks really easy to install. So they do a 6-step process that basically walks you through the installation. And the system itself looks really well engineered. Again, I'm a little bit worried about how tough it's going to be in the jungle here, but the really only way to find out is to test it out and get it working. So I think this is about the worst first test that I could come up with for this system. But I'm going to take the next half hour or so and install this CS3 system onto my Borealis Yampa. So I'm doing La Ruta in a fat bike this year, mostly as training for the Iditarod, and also for the fact that the guys at the La Ruta have actually put a fat bike category in. So it's the first normal stage race that I know of where there's a fat bike category. So that's pretty exciting. So I've got the Borealis Yampa. I've got the CS3 system, the chain cleaning system. I'm going to give that an install now. Because La Ruta is such a harsh environment, I'm going a little bit beyond what they provide. So they provide these pretty nifty cable clamps, so heavy glue, and then a clamp clicks in, which is nice. But with La Ruta being such a harsh environment, I lost a piece of kit off my bike last year just in the mud that was bolted on. So what I'm going to do, particularly around the rear triangle, is just take electrical tape and tape that cord, tape the cable on, make sure it stays good and tight, and it's not flopping around or anything like that. So I'm going to do that just for a little extra protection. So I've had to mount it upside down, and backwards because the cable length is a little bit short. Now this is a fat bike, but it's not the longest of fat bikes, but you can see with the cable like that, I'm running it up here, and when I tuck it in, not a lot of extra, but I think it'll work out okay. Alright, non-return valve returns a little bit, and then this, if I do that, oh, look at that. For fuck's sake, it actually works, Wayne.
It works.
And this, can you see the... Oh, you know what? I bet I have to prime the... Yeah. Go ahead and pump that once or twice.
Ready?
Yeah. Alright, good.
cause your body like a carry-out. Let me walk into your body till you hear me out. Turn me on, my baby, don't you cut me out. Turn me on, my baby, don't you cut me out. Take my order cause your body like a carry-out. Let me walk into your body till it's lights out. Turn me on, my baby, don't you cut me out. Turn me on, my baby, don't you cut me out. Cut me out.
Baby, you're looking fine. I have you open all night like it. Baby, you're looking fine. I have you open all night like it. Baby, you're looking fine. I have you, baby, you're looking fine.
Hey, I'm finally back from Costa Rica, here in Chamonix in the mountain bike workshop layer downstairs, and I want to give you some quick thoughts on the chain cleaner. So there are 3 things that you can take away from this. Number 1, it's pretty easy to install. Number 2, they need to make some revisions to really make it mountain bike worthy. And number 3, it makes a big difference. I was in that ankle and knee deep mud that was just thick as molasses, tearing at everything. And I'd hit that brush, lock it down there, and pump the oil on there, and it felt like I shifted up a gear. I mean, it was a noticeable difference, especially when you went from sort of being in the mud and the muck onto a dirt road. You could really feel it. So I'm sold. It works like a charm. The engineering's sound. But to back up, I think they need to make a couple design changes, and this may be a little bit incumbent on the bike manufacturers, but first and foremost, from their perspective, what they can do is make a bigger reservoir. I was able to change to fill the oil reservoir because I had used it all up, but it's only because it was a long, kind of slow race. At Leadville, where I'm hopping on and hopping back on cyclocross style and trying to save every second, I don't know if I'd want to do that. So I want a bigger reservoir. It gets more important as the race gets shorter, I think. It was a great benefit the first day, and I really liked it and used it, made a difference. Really helped me climbing up the volcano the second day, but then coming down, especially with the fat bike, I was able to really scream on the descent. I mean, I crushed it with those fat tires and the lefty fork that I had set up on my Yampa. But one thing that happened was I hit the derailleur, took out the rear pulley, and it took out the C3 chain system on the descent. So I couldn't use it anymore. So that was, I think, partly attributable to the fact that cable was hanging out on the outside. So those are my 3 takeaways. Really like the system. I think they need to make a few changes and ideally drop down the price a little bit, but it's a really well-working system. You can notice the difference, and it's incredibly well engineered, which I suppose is part of what you're paying for in that expense. So I'm Patrick Sweeney, tested the C3 chain cleaning system at the Ruta de Los Conquistadores in Costa Rica, and feel free to email me or follow me on Twitter. Thanks.